But I'm Steve. I'm the MD of Executive Connections. We're in the outplacement and career coaching space. We've been going for 10 years. 10 years in February it was actually. So busy was I that I went past the 10-year anniversary and didn't even notice. So there we are. I've got to organize some belated celebrations of some sort at some point. And we work with people, not just in the UK, but in a couple of other various locations as well, as you can see there. Now, this series is not a presentation-oriented session necessarily, despite it begins. It's about giving a quick little input on a subject, and then you're able to ask questions about any subject at all afterwards. So despite the fact that we're doing LinkedIn at the moment, don't think it's got to be about LinkedIn. You can ask whatever you like. So they're weekly. They're going to be every Wednesday morning. The recordings are available. So if you know anyone you think could benefit, get them to register. Even if they can't attend, they'll be sent the link to the recording. So it's always helpful. So yeah, I talked about the video. I've talked about the process pretty much. This Q&A bit at the end is really important. You know, this is your opportunity. You can view this as a sort of a group coaching opportunity, you know, as much as anything else. So I do try and keep it quite sort of casual and relaxed, you know, and friendly, even though I want to offer some input at the front end of it. So I say this lots of times, you know, and the stats here are true. Your profile photo, it can vary on LinkedIn according to what you're in. I know that anyone who's in, you know, sort of fitness and nutrition might have a slightly different approach to someone who's in a another sort of more corporate role. But if you haven't got an updated photo, you probably have, but just get it updated. It's really important. And you know, the stats there speak for themselves. You know, maybe put a note in the chat if you feel so moved as to why you think your profile will receive 21 times more views if you haven't got a photo. It's an interesting stat, but so it's a no-brainer pretty much, really. You know, just make sure you've got that, and make sure you've got that up to date. I can't recall whether we mention it in this presentation, but while I'm on this subject, you know, the banner just behind your photo, you can put a shot in there of something that's important to you in your life, a location you love or something like that. You can go on to fiverr.com, places like that, and get one designed that's a bit more businessy oriented, maybe, if you want to do that. So it's worth using all that sort of real estate that you've got on the top part of that LinkedIn page. The headline, I talk about the mobile hack here. Again, some of you might be aware of this. If you update your headline information on the mobile, it will let you put almost an infinite number of you know, characters in there, but obviously it makes sense not to go crazy with that. So just make sure that you use the keywords that you're going to be searched for. I may come on to this, but there will be different schools of thought about the heading. You'll see some people, it will say, if you were a CFO or CIO, somebody like that, helping organizations to resolve such and such an issue, and blah, 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 blah. A kind of a positioning statement, if you like. Other people will put in keywords, so it could be CIO, CFO, mergers and acquisitions, etc., with that sort of vertical line separating. So all you have to remember with your headline, which is probably why I gravitate more towards the latter, is that when someone is searching for you on LinkedIn, that little headline piece just under your name is going to be the first place that LinkedIn looks as part of its own algorithm. So just make sure that's up to date. The About section is your opportunity to talk about yourself. And I was talking to, again, in this LinkedIn group only yesterday about, they gave a graphic, which I didn't feel I could share here because it's kind of, they talk about things being confidential within that group, but it's, you can find things in most places. What they're talking about is LinkedIn sits at that intersection between sort of the casual social media and the very serious social media. So if you imagine two interconnecting circles, LinkedIn sort of sits right in the middle, so to speak. Now, why is that important? Because it gives you the opportunity to be not just very staid and businesslike on LinkedIn. You can put a bit of yourself in there as well. So in that About section, you know, we've sort of advised people to put in things like, my main hobby is books, but I buy more books than I ever read. My wife and I like to, etc., etc. I'm not talking about chapter and verse or going over the top, but it's all right to put something like that in that gives the reader a little bit more information about yourself. But the top part, certainly, you want it to be your elevator pitch. You don't want it to be, sorry, I'm a bit jazz handsy, this morning with all this. It's not just a question of copying and pasting your profile section from your CV. A little bit too kind of formal, maybe. You can put that there, but certainly expand on it and make it a little bit more human, a little bit more personable. That's what I would say, really. Just add that human touch, as it says. The experience section, sometimes people will just put in, I was here for this length of time, that one, that one, that one. Again, it's all keywords and it's all potential for you to be able to put in detail, which will again position you. If someone's searching for you, it'll position you further up the search results on LinkedIn, thinking of LinkedIn like a Google search engine. The more instances you can put of certain phrases or words and terms, and this is what we talk to people about a lot, the more beneficial it will be for you. So again, it isn't just a staid repetition of your CV. It can expand a little bit more. And remember that piece about keywords as well. I don't know how many of you have endorsements, recommendations. Do you ask for them? Do you receive them? So there's a mechanism for, do you give them? So there's a mechanism for all of that on LinkedIn, and sometimes the reciprocation sort of works. If you give, you will receive, and I think it will help people to get a little bit more of a flavor about who you are, what you've done. And as I say, reach out and offer to endorse people as well. Not just talking about necessarily the little tick box, Steve is good at this, Steve is good at that. It's about genuine recommendations and actually putting something down that person can be proud of in their profile. And obviously you can ask people to provide a recommendation for you as well. It's all about credibility, isn't it, at the end of the day? And you're trying to beef it up with 1 billion users, try and just get above the noise a little bit. Groups, I've had a bit of a love-hate relationship with groups. I suppose some groups, they used to have a reputation for being a little bit spammy on LinkedIn, but I think if you're in one or two selected groups, one job search and one peer professional type group, that's certainly probably enough just to give your reach a little bit more emphasis. So you can not just do it on your main feed, you can post things within the groups, as well, as long as you're not being pushy, salesy, needy. What else? That kind of individual. Don't be that person. As long as you're putting in sensible content and it's helpful content, and that's what it's designed for, then you can't really be doing much wrong by participating in groups, and it will expand your reach as well. Content, I talk to people about this a lot because I give the example of, in terms of your job search, if you view it as a pie chart, that people neglect LinkedIn in the sense that they're not thinking of themselves as a personal brand. The whole idea of liking posts, commenting, sharing other people's content, writing your own content, it just seems a little bit kind of foggy, I think is the way I would describe it. It's much easier just to click apply, click apply, click apply. Whether or not there are hundreds of people in front of you, in the application queue, there's still something in human nature about being able to add that to your spreadsheet, and it's another job you've applied for. The aspect of putting credible content out there that reaches people, that you can then go back and look at your profile, see who's viewed you. Can you make fresh connections, fresh networking connections that might lead to ... And it's that ... that I think stops a lot of people from engaging in this sort of activity. I know many people that the best job of their lives has come through this kind of activity. So I would urge you to do it if you're not already doing it. There's no real prescription whether you post once a day, once a week, twice a week. I think once a week is probably not quite enough if you're going to do it, but certainly you don't have to be doing something every day. But do something, just give it a go. Make it industry specific to you, make it on a subject that you're passionate about, don't expect to go viral on your first post. You know, give it a chance and just sort of see what happens. Why are you doing it? To get across more people's radar. It's as simple as that. And it's not about an ego trip. It's not about lots of photos of, look at me, etc. It's to get across more people's radar. That is a real tangible way of your job search, of engaging in your job search. And it's accessing the hidden jobs market directly by doing that. Oh, I mentioned the hidden job market there already. Okay. So yes, I think that's the big point. It links up, it links with the hidden jobs market, this sort of subject, the unadvertised jobs market. If you take, again, a pie chart and imagine that a fairly small chunk of that are advertised roles, where are all these other things that are happening? Sometimes it's closed networks at the very highest pinnacle of career. It's somebody with their little notebook where they've got contacts and they never have to go through an interview process, probably. But for the rest of us, it's about networking, getting outside your comfort zone, reaching outside your immediate network, and keeping that flow going, and viewing yourself as a sort of a marketing operation. This is, for a lot of people, it's only going to be relevant during that job search phase, that period in time, which can change once you've got the role. Many people will sort of drop this activity, which I think is a bit of a shame, because even if you dialed it down a bit once you've got the role, if you still put in an hour a week to doing a little bit of networking, keeping in touch, you're not then having to reactivate a network that's almost died and you haven't been in touch with for years, So I would suggest keeping it as part of your activity in any event. You know about the job alerts, I'm sure you do. That's one way of keeping tabs on what's being advertised. Now, we've talked about the unadvertised piece. Job search capabilities, you've got the Boolean searches where you can put such and such plus with a plus sign, such and such, not, capital NOT. So you're trying to really, in that language, that BOOLEAN language, you're trying to really fine tune your search and trying to keep out the stuff that you're just not interested in. So here, I think, yeah, get your real-time updates, but I would still always probably come back to having a real emphasis on this piece, the hidden job piece, and making sure that you're engaging in that as well. But I've got to talk about job alerts and so on because it's set up in that way on LinkedIn. So engaging, do you really engage with your connections, or do you just gather connections and just keep them there as sort of little trophies? I think we all do that to a certain extent. I've got thousands and thousands of connections. I don't know all of them, and you can reach out, you can try and have networking conversations as regularly as you like, but make sure that as many as possible, they're just genuine relationships and you're not just building up the numbers. It will also help your reach as well. So everything you're doing, everything you're writing, you're commenting on, you're sharing, it'll all help exponentially to reach more people. More people will see your content, the more people you are connected to. But again, I would say do it selectively. There's a bit of a strange thing with LinkedIn. Connect if you know this person, and yet on the other hand, you'll see things in your feed that is just actively encouraging you to connect with all and sundry. So you've got to kind of take your own steer on that to a degree. These are people who've worked with us and who took these things on board and have done really, really well out of it. Maybe there's one or two here I could spot that are probably not keeping up their LinkedIn activity as much as I would like nowadays, but certainly in that job search phase, yeah, a real effort in making sure that using LinkedIn is part of that thing. I'm going to paste some links in the chat in a minute, but I put it here because people view the recordings and they won't see the chat, in that context. So if you're watching this, or if you're with us now and you want to book a one-to-one session to discuss your job search, and we haven't already done that, there'll be a link in the chat to do that. We often get people attending and viewing the recordings that are in HR as well, and maybe in the unfortunate position of having to talk to people about being made redundant, etc. So there's a separate link for those individuals. So yeah, like I said right at the outset, that's the presentation on LinkedIn, essentially. It will be interesting to see what questions you've got, whether they are going to be pretty much LinkedIn based, or whether you've got anything that that you really want to ask that's not LinkedIn related. I did mention with the image there, I did mention the who's viewed my profile bit. If you're on a free account, who's viewed my profile will be like a scrolling affair that will drop off at some point, and you won't see everybody. So if you've got a free account, make sure you're looking at who's viewed my profile regularly, daily. If you've got a premium account, which just gives you overall more reach, when you're in a job search phase, and more search capability, and you can scroll down almost ad infinitum on the who's viewed my profile piece. But if you're on a free account, it's just very, very important to to make sure that you keep monitoring that. All right, guys, I'll come back into the room and just see what kind of questions you've got. As I say, whether it's LinkedIn related, whether it's job search, whether it's ageism, whether it's the hidden jobs market, CVs, personal branding, we're open to any questions. I'm not the fount of all knowledge here, but I'm going to do my best to try and answer some questions anyway. So, all right, who'd like to kick off? Don't forget to unmute yourself if you're going to ask a question, by the way.
Hi, Steve. I'll go.
Morning, Phil. Hi. Give me a quick drink.
Yeah, I was interested in what you were talking about, the being active with your network, and I definitely fall into the category of I've collected a lot of names, not as many as you by the sounds of it, but still somewhere floating around 1,000-ish plus. And I look at them and I think, well, a lot of those are just, rubbish, basically. Would you advocate going through a housekeeping process to get rid of ones that you're never going to really either want to connect with properly or use in whatever sense you want to use? I mean the word use, so you can actually see the wood for the trees?
Yeah, I think it helps, and I often wish there was an intelligent sort of automated way of doing this. The same would apply if you are trying to see who you've sent connections to that haven't accepted, for example. That's another thing. You can go back through your sent connect requests and go back through and actually, if someone's not replied sort of 3 or 4 weeks in, well, maybe it's time to delete that connect request as well. But yes, what you're saying makes sense. And it would also help then LinkedIn's algorithm to present more of the right kind of content or the right kind of people to you, if it can sort of see who you're connected with, essentially.
Okay, thank you. Interesting.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
So basically do it. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. Don't forget, anything LinkedIn related or not, it's totally up to you guys. Karen, hi.
Hi. Just going on from what Phil said, I'm actively looking for work at the moment, and I've linked in with some recruiters, headhunters, whatever they are, and they are actively advertising roles on LinkedIn. So I've applied for the role, linked with them, they've accepted my connection, I texted them through LinkedIn, and silence. Should you kill those connections and walk away?
Some people would like to, I'm sure. Yeah, I think that and I know at the time it's not I know at the time it's not funny, but it's one of those situations where ghosting has become much more prevalent in all areas of society now, whether we blame COVID or whatever we blame for that. It just seems to be ghosting is the new no, as I say to people sometimes, and yeah, that's unfortunate, and it links into resilience, mental health, and all those things as well, because people put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into an application, let alone prepping for an interview if you happen to get one thereafter anyway. So it's hard work. As far as culling them is concerned, I think that would be a personal choice. I think that some people will keep all their contacts together on LinkedIn. Some people I've seen people create spreadsheets, with nice color coded, things going across them. Depends how adept you are at spreadsheets, or other methods of that. And just sort of, it's one of those things where you kind of fire and forget kind of thing almost. If
Yeah.
you think it's something you've applied for, you put your best effort in. The recruiters are motivated by ultimately their commission when the person is appointed at the other end. So all the driver then
Yeah.
don't their own funnel. It's all about
Yeah.
get some candidates, submit them quickly. If you're not quite ticking their boxes, then they're probably not going to pick up the phone and have the kindness to let you know that. I always say somebody could start a recruitment agency and have as their USP, we'll always get back to you.
Yeah.
No one's done it yet.
Some, I must be honest, some do, and some just like you say, ghost. There was somebody posted on LinkedIn the other day that we are paid by the company and not the candidate, which I thought was a bit arrogant because without candidates you would have nothing. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's almost like we're allowed to be obnoxious and rude because you don't pay us, which I thought was a bit
Yeah, it's quite tunnel vision. In the if it was described in a nicer way, it's factual, but it
it is,
doesn't
yeah,
it doesn't
sure.
have it doesn't also mean that, again, it's a conversation I've had many times that people will say, well, look, I've interviewed lots of people, I've got lots of contacts, etc. They don't seem to think that I might be a client one day as
Oh
well.
yeah, yeah,
And that's a little bit of, maybe it's tunnel vision, and maybe it's because there's just enough going on anyway that they don't need to have that nuance of thought and empathy.
yeah,
Maybe that's the case. It comes down to our own kind of depending on which side of the pond you're on, as far as putting blinkers on or blinders, and just sort of going ahead with your kind of process, and realizing that to some extent it's a numbers game, and some of the things I've talked about this morning can help to minimize that numbers game a little bit, and make the job search a bit different and varied as well, to
yeah,
actually engage in some of those activities. But yes, I know that it's very, if you see something that's advertised, boom, it's very straightforward. It seems much easier than just saying, right, who shall I network with today, in the vague
yeah,
hope that
yeah, yeah,
something might come out of it, which is the negative way of describing it. I think a lot of really great things are out there. The trouble is, they're normally just outside of your immediate network, those kind of roles. So there's the value in
yeah,
just saying, I'm going to connect with, I don't know, I'm going to connect with 10 new people every week that are relevant people, going back to Phil's point. I am going to reach out to a few companies every week on a good old speculative approach, and so on, perhaps. I mean, we help people do that because we've got great networks. And we might say, if we can put two people together for an introduction, we'll do that. So we're trying to live and breathe the hidden jobs market, as well as just putting it there as an idea,
yeah.
But yes, I think it's about, as I do, deep
Creative.
breathing, meditation, whatever it is, and just sort of keeping on going.
Yeah,
Mm.
thanks, Steve.
Happy to chat though, Karen, obviously, any point if it's relevant for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Steve, could I monopolise things and ask another question?
Not at all, not at all. Pleasure, Phil.
You were talking there about sort of connecting with people you're not you've just picked up as connections, or messaging potential employers. Do you have any tips for how you do that, particularly approaching potential employers or people you might be interested in having conversations with, without sounding kind of needy? I mean, in my my previous roles, I've had people send CVs through and letters which are really just almost desperate. So is there kind of an approach you would advocate that works for how to structure those things that doesn't look like a give me a job?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about exact wording and some nuances and some personalization and things like that, but I think you've probably answered at least 50% of the question yourself, in terms of how you would want to come across as not being, let's say, so I think that it depends on the approach, and it's about research as well, because if it was a straight, I don't know anybody at this company, I've got to put it into HR, or someone in that area, and just put, hello, I'm me, I'm currently on the market, blah, 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 and it's fairly straightforward. That's one way of doing it, but it's a bit anonymous. It's better if you're able to make a connection on LinkedIn, start to have a little bit of dialogue about, interesting merger and acquisition situation I read about recently with your company. How is that going? If you can get a dialogue going, and like we were saying with Karen, if you don't get ghosted, along the way, if you can get a dialogue going, that's a better way of doing it just prior to making that actual approach. You've got to make that approach. People sometimes, maybe it's a bit of a jokey thing in a way, but people use a dating analogy with this as well about, you're going out on a date, what would be appropriate behavior on the first, first date, the second, the third, the fourth. And it's a similar thing with this kind of arrangement. You might just have a conversation first, try and find a little bit about the organization, try and engage the person, if it was someone of a equal sort of senior level to yourself or somebody like that, perhaps you start having a peer-to-peer conversation, then you bring up what you're talking about now, that kind of subject. So, and again, that's a thing where you can have a strategy. You can almost have you want to tailor it and personalize it every single time, but you might have a connect request wording, first follow-up message wording, second one, how much time between those two, ? Is there a third one, or is it 3 strikes and out? What's my kind of approach?
That's a good tip. I hadn't thought about it in being that structured. I tend to sort of start off and then
I feel a spreadsheet coming on there, another spreadsheet.
Yeah, it is starting to feel like that, isn't it? I like colours as well, like you said.
Yeah, it's normally, the example I was thinking of was a CFO that did that. So maybe better with spreadsheets. Hey, who knows? Where are we up to now? And we're only at 9 o'clock, so we've got time. If anyone's got anything else they want to.
Yeah, I have a comment, or like also maybe a question. It's in terms of what we just talked about. What happened to me is that when I look for particular companies or potential companies, right? Then I just check out who is already working in that company and who is like connected with me.
Mhm.
So sometimes even if it's one person, but then even if it's one person, you can reach out to that person and then getting more involved with that person. And then, then you have a hook basically. Maybe they can give you information already, kind of research.
Yes.
I think that is also a good thing. Or connecting with people who work in that company.
I think so. Perfect. Yeah, exactly that. But that feeds into a little bit of the mindset, because in a job search, when do you want the job? Yesterday. And it kind of feeds into that approach where you're kind of thinking, okay, how graduated and how gentle can I be about this kind of approach? How subtle can I be? What's my patience level like? When do I sort of think, no reply, that one's finished with, and move on, etc., etc. But as a strategy, definitely, yeah, I like that, Ulrika. I like it a lot. Just in terms of getting names, researching the company page as well, the people who are in the company itself. Have you got first degree connections already that you might have, going back to something that Phil said, you might have forgotten about them. They might just be in your connections already if you've got enough. If you haven't, second degree connections. If you get any conversations, then I would say it's good to have that equal footing as well, because you can go onto a call if you were having like a quick Zoom or Teams call with somebody. Try to and again, it comes back to this pushy, needy, salesy thing. Have you got anything you can talk to that person about? If I was trying to come onto you and talk about a job within your company, I wouldn't talk about that straight away. I might be saying, good to talk to you, Ulrika. Maybe I can just tell you a couple of things about me, and it'd be great to find out about your organization, as well, just on a very relaxed sort of basis. Oh, by the way, I was looking in the news the other day and I saw XYZ. We can all do Google News searches, and you can drill it down to what happened yesterday, the day before, last week, just before you have a conversation with somebody. And it just gives you another, if anything happened, if anything did happen, it gives you another bit of ammunition to use in that call, so that you're kind of, you know, you're not sort of like, this is you and this is them in that kind of mindset, you know, that it's a meeting of equals. You're bringing something to that conversation as well, you know. That's the only emphasis I would say. But the concept, good strategy, company page, click on the company page. Have you got any first degree connections? Start to work your way in that way. That is a good thing. I'm going to do that instead of the yellow thumbs up. There we are. Yeah.
Steve, on the, when you say you have a special wording for your, when you connect, and then the second connection, what you say, should you be saying in what, probably the second one, you know, a little bit about what you're looking for? So in other words, you know, I'm a CFO in whatever industry. I believe my skills transfer would match these industries. Is that the sort of thing
Yeah, that sounds a bit more like
that you should say?
a cover letter, you know, in a way, if you're going to that. And I think that my instant thought when you said that was like split testing almost. When you have something you're trying to see, does this approach work or does that approach work? You know, you could do 20 with we're connected and I'm going straight in to tell you what my situation is, albeit in a competent way, versus connect request. Then it'd be great, you know, I've been really following your company for a while. It'd be great to sort of share some best practice and things like that, and just find out a bit more about what's going on in your organization. I don't think it's false pretenses when you get on that call. Yeah, partway through, 2/3 of the way through, you can say, well, you know, yeah, I mean, I am actually, you know, in the market myself at the moment, and such company is a company I really love. I've loved them for a long time. And I just wanted to have a quick chat with you, you know, and take that piece forward. You know, I think that you have to split it, probably split test it, what they call in, you know, the A/B testing, something like that, where you're actually seeing best practice. So yeah, I think that you will then come to which one you're getting most traction with. What you're giving me an example of there is the kind of, I want to get straight to the business. I want to get straight to the business end, where thinking about it as more of a networking approach, you know, under the table, you know exactly why you're doing it and what the aim is, but you just want to be seen to be a bit different from everyone else who's saying, hello, this is me. Here's a précis version of my cover letter, pretty much. So I would do a little split test. I would. Cool. And I'm walking the talk there. I've done split tests on email send outs to organizations and all sorts, you know, and you can see when, you know, in certain setups, you can see when open rates are higher for a certain subject headline or a certain piece of content. You can see that, you know, for sure. So it's worth doing. It's worth doing. I would definitely try both approaches. Don't just stick to one.
Just one more thing. While you were talking now, it came to mind that, you know, or like it's for me, if people connect with me and they not hit the connection button or but they show interest, like, you know, your profile or what you're in the same industry as me, or I saw your latest post and that I was really interested in that, blah, 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 blah. So that is actually like being curious about the other person and, you know, like developing that interest. So it's more likely that they are coming back to you and not ghosting or anything, you know?
Yes. So I think, yeah, it's a strange one, and I really am not contradicting what you're saying. I would think that a personalized connect request must be better than a blank, don't put anything in, just click connect, as I accidentally do on mobile sometimes, because it gives you a chance to personalize it on a little separate menu. If you just click connect, it'll send it straight away on mobile. But having said that, I'm sure I read somewhere that, you know, the results of people that subsequently connect is literally no different, which is a bit of a shame, really, you know, in terms of the personalized connect, request, approach, and the, you can get to, obviously you're going to look at the person's profile. What are they doing? What are they selling? Is there that kind of thing going on? I know people that, for me, it wouldn't work, but for some people it might. I know people that will, go in and endorse people for a couple of things before they even know them, and then go off and make a connection. I think commenting or liking a couple of posts that the person has done is a legitimate way of you getting across their radar. Again, in terms of prior to connecting as well. So all of this, it's almost like a massive jigsaw puzzle. People will put together their own strategy that works for them ultimately. It's in a job search context, yes, but you're just marketing yourself at the end of the day. And I think it's great for everybody to acquire those skills. And as I keep banging the drum about, not then dropping it like a stone once you get into the new role. Just keep some of that going. So even just in a small way. So yeah, thanks. Brilliant points. Brilliant points. Anybody else? Anything cropped up with anybody in anyone's job search lately that's nothing to do with LinkedIn? Anybody been ghosted? Anyone had some good experiences? Right, we might be up to date with questions. Let me have a quick look. Someone said they had to drop out. Had a meeting. So you've got the links in the chat there, should you need them. Thanks, Dorcas, for doing that. Yeah, no final questions? Great stuff. So same time, same place next week. Drop me a note. You can either have, as I say, a one-to-one chat there, or if you just want to ask a quick question, just connect and DM me on LinkedIn. I'll see you all very soon. Have a good rest of your day, people.
Okay,
Thanks,
Steve, just
Steve.
one question. Sorry, the recordings, where can I see them?
It will be sort of sent out to you directly if you've
Okay.
registered for this. Yeah, they will be sent out.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
perfect. Thanks
Thank
a lot.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yes.
Have a good day.
Bye,
Thank you.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys. Bye-bye.